But quite the opposite's happened to me. I've been encouraged to speak out. No NDAs, no one's told me. I've had hints to keep going, and I firmly believe that. These things were not from here, but even if we had been armed, there was absolutely zero we could have done about it to defend ourselves, in my view. Here we are off the coast of San Diego. They haven't exhibited any type of hostilities or any intentions or anything like that. They were just pretty much benign doing whatever they were doing off the coast because I was concerned about safety of flight. If it hadn't been for the fact we were going to do the exercise, we wouldn't be here right now, probably. It would just been tracked and reported. It's been observed that whatever these things are tend to show up around nuclear installations. That's a good question. Why they were there at that particular moment in time, I've long wondered that. I mean, that's a very good question. The reason why they are here is for rocks and souls. I know that sounds scary, but when I first heard this concept, I was kind of taken aback. What, they're here to kill us? No. And I believe that the human form can live and die, but our soul persists. I challenge you to go into Chat GPT and ask it, what do all the major religions on planet Earth have in common? 3 words, period. Love and compassion.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense they'd want to wipe us out. We are life. However, we sit on something very valuable. If you see these things personally, and you sense that you're starting to change, and other people around you are starting to notice you're changing, like, don't let it bug you. Because you are changing. In fact, go with it.
The following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
Welcome back, one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure Meeting the Moment. You might notice that visually it's a little different than what you're getting used to. That's because this is a 2-parter. If you have not already seen Intention Part 1 with Kevin Day, you must do that now. We are going to pick up right where we left off. We had a cliffhanger. I asked Kevin, what is the big darn deal over all of this? We're going to hear his answer real soon. The last 2 or 3 minutes of the previous episode are going to be the first 2 or 3 minutes of this episode to bring you back into that conversation. This next section is completely separate from the first one, and it is going to be a little over 2 hours. So let's get right down to it.
You got to want to listen, right?
What exactly do you mean by they didn't quite fit in? Can you go into a little more detail about that?
Yeah, they look like you. I mean, they were well dressed, and I noticed they went by the name of Forrest and Shakate, and I noticed Forrest had a sidearm. He had a weapon, right? So when Red Dog started chasing the black bear, I looked at Forrest. I said, "Hurry, shoot, fire 1 round!" And quicker than I could blink, right by my ear.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah, Red Dog broke off chase and came running back up the hill. And right then I knew, okay, these guys are not really what they say they are. So anyway, we roll back off the mountain. We get back to my house, and they set me down in the living room, and Shakate looks at me and says, Kevin, we got something to tell you. And I said, oh boy, here it comes. And he started off by saying, we're not sure how to say this, but you are incredibly important to what's about to happen. And I looked at him like they were on drugs. I had no idea, especially when he looked at me again. He said, we do not want you to make a continental plate slip into the ocean.
Wow.
Can you imagine? I was thinking, okay, you guys are all dressed and you're clean cut and you're strapped and you're obviously well trained in weapons, and you're telling me this, and you're not who you said you were. Just what the F or what? And I didn't know how to take it.
So,
Well, I mean, what do you do with that?
so this happened before the video comes out on CNN, or immediately
Oh yeah,
after?
this was back in 2014.
Okay,
But
so that would have been what, about 3 years before?
yeah,
Um,
so when Lou did come, he interviewed me, and that interview's all available on the internet. I pulled him off the side. I said, "Hey, Lou, I got a question for you." He said, What's up?" I said, "Did you happen to know those two guys that came to see me in 2014?" I said, "Forrest and Shakate." And he kind of he steps back like, "Wow." And he looks at me and kind of winks a little bit and says, "I emailed them."
wow.
So that's how it's all kind of related. So yeah, I've been being watched for a long time. And oh, by the way, we're being watched right now, just so you know. Uh, I I mean, I've had people here in town watching me. It's on my computer, they're watching my phone, my email, everything I do on the internet. But you know what? I have to tell you, I'm perfectly cool with it. And in fact, I'm glad they are. I really am. Because I kind of hope maybe they're watching out for me too.
Wow. They
What what
obviously
we
thought you're.
what
They
we do
obviously.
here, gentlemen, is it entirely safe? I don't know if you realize that or not.
Oh, I'm fine with that. They
Yeah.
obviously feel that your intention, your power of intention, is very strong.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. There's because oddly enough, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but when we started talking, sir, before doing this, and we were talking about what we were going to say and the questions I was going to ask and such, it wasn't very long after that the only public profile that I have that doesn't have a lot of action on it because I'm not very much into social media. It actually received a digital visit from AFOSI, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. I do have someone that I've granted access to that might be the answer to that, but they don't work for the Air Force. There's a different branch of the military. So I don't know what to think of that. I just find it's interesting that it happened relatively soon after we all started talking about this. But with that said, do you have any non-disclosure or other such agreements that would preclude you from discussing certain aspects of UAP, commonly referred to as UFOs?
No, I don't. And in fact, as strange as it sounds, I believe that I'm being used to talk about it.
Interesting.
Well,
Can you elaborate?
I try to put myself in their shoes. You know, what would I do? What would I do if it was my job to protect all of us, to keep us all safe? And so I try to be as non-emotional as I can, thinking about the whole surveillance aspect of this. Because you know what? With the shoes on different feet, if I was wearing their shoes, I would do that. I would be watching me too. I'd want to know what the hell I was up to. What were my intentions? Am I up to no good here? What, is someone paying me? All those questions. In fact, I would be concerned if they weren't watching me. Think about it. Duh.
I think the big question a lot of people would ask, and even myself, is why though? Why such a big darn deal over this?
Well, that's a very good question. And there could be a couple answers. And basically, I think it falls down into three different possibilities. One is the obvious, the military applications, strategic applications of essentially whoever figures out this technology first wins.
Yeah, bingo.
Right there, it wins. And another possibility is these don't have to be all exclusive either. They could be all inclusive. They're probably concerned about stigmata. Because even right now, we had talked about the conflict going on in the Middle East right now. And if you really peel the onion back on that thing, what does it really all come down to? And I'm making it real simple here because it's a very complicated issue, very complex. So please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say.
Okay.
But if you really think about it, at the central heart of this, it's a long-standing disagreement over beliefs, over religion.
There you go.
So think about this. Everyone, all the different faiths, a lot of people don't know this, but I Googled, and did some research on this and used AI. There are over 2,600 religions and faiths on this planet.
That's
And a lot of
unbelievable.
them stem from the Abrahamic traditions. All the prime religions on our planet, they all have the central source in Abrahamic faiths, and a lot of them accept Jesus Christ as the Messiah, and the whole religious aspect of this. And again, I'm oversimplifying this, but just what's going to happen if and when these things show up and everyone suddenly realizes that all of their religions don't quite have it right.
That could be a problem.
I see it that way. Now, there's others that disagree with me. There's others that say no, all the religions will accept it and they'll adopt it as part of their own faith. And I pray they're right. I absolutely pray they're right. But I think the concern is valid that it's not going to go well. And I think the proof is in the pudding here, gentlemen. Just look what's happening in the Middle East.
Very
And
true.
that's without aliens involved. Just think what could happen. And I think another thing that's going on, the reason why they're trying to control it, I think they're not trying to, again, I'm trying to think of what I would do. I would try to play this out over time. So to give civilization a chance to digest the reality that we are not alone in the universe, because they understand, and I actually believe there's some anomalous history on Earth itself. Like what happened to all the past civilizations?
Very true. Yeah.
So what I firmly believe is this has been tried before. Humanity's on repeat. Hopefully we'll get it right this time. I think whatever these things are have tried to reveal themselves to humanity before, and for whatever reason it didn't go well. And those past civilizations are no more. I mean, what happened to them? What happened to all those civilizations that could do phenomenal things like build pyramids? Correct me if I'm wrong, but we couldn't do that today, could we?
I don't believe we
believe
could,
so.
at least not with the precision that they were built. So I agree with 100% everything you just said, and I think you're absolutely correct with the idea of a slow bleed out, as it were, to let people get used to the idea. And Stuart, I wanted to see what you thought about that when I was thinking about so many things, because that was like a zip file for me, Kevin. I want to unpack it all. But you were talking about the oh my gosh, like I think it was like if we all have it wrong with the religions and such. Stuart, what's your view on that? I personally think that religions all of them will accept ET, as it were. But Stuart, what do you think about that?
Well, there are certain groups that have always known about this information but have been holding it back. And the people that you met in the forest may be connected to those groups, I highly suspect. There are people and groups that understand that our collective consciousness forms and shapes this reality. And some of those groups are seeking to do it in a positive way, and some are seeking to do it in what might be termed as a negative way. So for those people, it's not going to be any shock. In fact, it might be the opposite, where they're not shocked, but wanting to keep the status quo and not have other people understand what's really going on.
Interesting.
I do have a point to make on all this. When I was a little boy growing up, I remember watching the first moon landing when I was in kindergarten, first grade time frame. And throughout my life, the whole subject of UFOs was kind of a laughable thing. I mean, you've probably had the same experiences. We're all roughly the same age. But let me ask you this. An 8-year-old kid now, today, they don't have the same perspective on UFOs that we did because of
True.
all this stuff that's happened in their lifetime. They've lived with Tic Tac. It's their reality. Hey, this happened and there's something out there and the government said they're real. That's their perspective. And we're going to be gone in a few years. We'll be dead and gone. But that new generation is here now. They're in place. And their context is much different than ours. So I think it's already working.
That is a
God bless you for the role you
fantastic
played
point.
in shifting our consciousness.
Yep, I think it's already working.
Yes,
They're
ditto on
planning
that for
the
me.
next generation that succeeds us when we're all dead and gone. So hopefully humanity can get off repeat this time, and we don't end up smoking this planet in all-out nuclear war or something worse.
I want to thank you for the role you've played in the shifting consciousness in that way, Kevin. I really want to respect that and honor that.
Thank you. It wasn't planned. I didn't ask for this job. I was just going about my last watch on the ship, and it found me.
Now, can I ask you something? Was it going to be your last watch? Had you already determined that, decided that? Or
Yes.
okay.
I had already had orders, and I knew it was my last time underway, my last hurrah, and yeah, I was looking forward to ending because I'd been on 6 different seagoing commands at that point, 18 and a half years at sea out of 22,
Wow.
which is a long time to spend at sea behind radar. So yeah, I was ready for a change, and if I had made Master Chief E9, my intention was to stay in again. And even if I had to go back to sea, I was going to do it. But because of everything that was happening, I became frustrated and was wondering why the hell did they only pick one that year? I could be wrong, but I don't think they've ever, as far as I know, they hadn't picked that few and ever. And why it happened that year, I don't know. It happened, the one they did pick was a person I went to A school with, OSA school, radar operator school back in the day. I graduated number 1, he graduated number 2. And yeah, so I knew who it was and I congratulated him. I was very happy for him. He was basically my equivalent on the East Coast. And I think they made the right choice to this moment. I really do.
Wow. In retrospect, would you have changed anything about your journey?
That's a tricky question because it gets you into a lot of trouble. And one of the reasons why I think I'm talking about whatever's out there, these things are out there, they can and do change. They can come back in time and change things. But they're very reluctant to because of the unknown after effects. Think about this. If you're supposed to go to the store to buy milk because you're out of milk, and for whatever reason they're doing road construction on the road, so you decide to turn right and go around like your alternate route, right? But come to find out later, if you would have went the original route, you probably would have been killed because there was a mass shooting event or something right there. So if you could go back in time to make the other choice, it's going to affect all the other choices that come after. So for me to sit here now and pick something that I would change, I would be extremely reluctant, to say the least, to even try, because I might not even be sitting here right now.
Well,
it would cascade. It would have cascaded it into one thing, into another thing, and then a whole different trajectory of life would have happened. Now, the one thing I'm happy about that I could never improve upon over this journey is the fact I have been honest. I can't prove on that. I have. If you look at my story from then till now, it has not changed, gentlemen.
Wow.
It has not changed, and thank God. And, you know, I could have tried to monetize this, you know, and like the book you held up, Sailor's Anthology. I, it's on Amazon. I published it in the Library of Congress, and the whole reason why it's on Amazon, just so you know, my entire intention of putting it there was I had a problem with getting copies. You know, how do I make, because the copy that's in the Library of Congress was handmade. I made it on a handmade press, printed it out on my home computer, everything, made it, handmade the book.
Oh, wow.
So I published it on Amazon just so I could get more copies of it if I ever needed them. And 2 months ago when I checked sales, I think I had 12 sales since 2009, 12 books. So proof is in the pudding there, gentlemen. I didn't publish that book to make money on it. Nope. And I've turned down offers. Every time I speak or do podcasts or go anywhere, I get offered speakers fees. Nope, don't want them. Get me there safe and home safe, I'm cool. And for me, it's just, I didn't do this for money. I'm not doing this for money. No. What I have, money can't buy.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for your
Go ahead-
bravery
go ahead
and
try to
honesty.
buy it. Go ahead and try to buy it. Now, will I end up becoming wealthy out of it somehow? If God intends it, yeah. But it's not my motivation.
Yeah.
And just for the record, the Universal Disclosure podcast does not pay any guests either, because it's all about just having an open conversation and making it free to the world to sort of broaden
Amen.
everyone's horizons. To sort of dovetail back into just, you know, real briefly and about the sort of surveillance aspect and such, in your opinion, Kevin, could there really be a dark state running things in the world to control information on UFOs? And have you ever been sort of told to keep quiet?
No. Answer to both questions, I believe, is no. As a matter of fact, for me, all they had to do is come tell me, shut the hell up, Kev. But quite the opposite's happened to me. I've been encouraged to speak out. And that's the way I interpret it, at least. No NDAs, no one's told me. I've had hints to keep going. And
Nice.
so that's what I've chosen to do. And what was the second part of the question about surveillance?
Well, it was more of I wanted to ask that when we were talking about that, you know, several minutes ago, but about so the dark state aspect. Do you think there could be a dark state of people in the background, sort of, you know, pulling strings to prevent this from coming forward?
I think it's your matter of perspective. What some people see as a dark state, the people that are in that supposed dark room are actually trying to protect you. And your perspective is they're up to no good, but I think quite the opposite is probably true. We're talking about good people here. Remember that. People that work in government, I came from that world. They're your neighbors. They're your old schoolmates. You know some of these people. They're not evil people. And of course, I'm generalizing here. You're talking about good people. And I just don't accept the notion, this conspiracy notion, that they're up to no good with this. I just don't buy it. Sorry. I could be wrong, but I don't buy it.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yep. And so that's why if I'm being surveilled, I'm happy, because I would be concerned if they weren't. Someone's not doing their job if they're not watching. It would be me like being behind a radar but not paying attention to it. Same thing.
Right.
So, sort of on the same line here, and I mean, I'm just going to ask the question because there was a couple folks that I had said that I was going to be talking to you, and this is a question that they wanted to ask, and I think it's a good one too. It's right along with what we just said. Why wouldn't Trump, a past president and one who's always eager to express himself, or any past president, not pass on more information unless their hands were tied also? What do you think about that? Like in terms of a presidential disclosure, as it were?
If I was president and I had to make the call on that, I would have to side on the side of safety of flight. But in a different, I mean, you think about it in terms of safety of flight, I would have to choose an answer that protected America the best.
Okay.
And so whatever the experts were telling me, and assuming that I believe what they were saying, I would probably keep my mouth shut too.
Excuse me.
Wow.
I mean, think about it. If you had to make that judgment call, but you knew by speaking out you were going to do more damage than good, and you were the president, what would you do?
Wow, great question.
That's a good point. And I personally believe that's why we're in what I'm viewing as a sort of lifelong researcher on the topic, that we're slowly starting to be in this.
Especially, gentlemen, when they don't have to, because they've got people like us out here doing it for them.
Right.
Another great point. Yes.
Yep.
Just to make the conversation, sort of okay to be had, and not some ridiculous thing, right?
I think they're counting on us to do it.
I would agree.
I could be wrong. I accept that.
That makes complete sense. I never thought about that, actually. It's a good point, Kevin.
Kevin, if you're wrong, and anybody out there is not wanting us, I'm sure you can find us. Just tell us to be quiet, right?
Yeah.
But that's not happening.
Well, it hasn't so far.
Yeah.
A little late now.
Right. So I want to go back to.
I'll be like, well, hello there, Johnny come lately.
I want to go back to sort of like your first impressions, your first thoughts. What was your first reaction, or yours, or the crew, when there was something that we needed to look at?
Wow. 6 different ships were at sea commands. All those years behind spy radar, and the 48 Echo radar, which is at the time where the radar was on the aircraft carriers. And I had never seen anything like this. I had hundreds of intercepts in my intercept control logbook, Top Gun graduate, weapons tactic instructor, years and years of experience, technical knowledge and know-how, well versed on the protocol and all that stuff. And so when I saw these objects coming from space, my first question to myself was, what the F word?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because they were so outside the context for what I was used to. It blew my mind, but in a good way. I was very determined to find out what they were. I wanted to intercept them from the moment I saw them. And to really summate your question in an answer, it was just as bizarre, and I used this earlier. You get up in the morning, you just put on the coffee, and you want some toast because you got to take your meds. And all of a sudden, your toaster oven says, "Good morning, Mike. How'd you sleep last night?" And it winks at you. That's how bizarre it was.
Wow.
And that's before the fun started. Excuse me. So that was my first initial reaction. Yeah, like what the, and I won't cuss, but you understand what I'm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to cut you off. You said that's before the fun started. I mean, what exactly was the fun?
Well, that's you asked me when I first saw him, what was I thinking?
Okay,
So
I get it now. I get it.
After we intercepted them, that's when they started doing the crazy shit.
Okay, understandable. All right, so what were your thoughts about the maneuverability of these objects and how they are basically no match to anything that we have? And please correct me if that's an incorrect statement about the Tic Tacs. But what was your first thought about that aspect of it, their maneuverability?
Well, if it happened today, I mean, this is 20 years later. I might entertain the possibility they were our technology for some reason which would have been illegal, testing it against us, or a foreign adversary doing it. But this was 20 years ago, and I do not believe this was our stuff and humanity stuff. I'm not talking about U.S. And I firmly believe that these things were not from here. They're not our technology. It's just they're able to use the four known fundamental forces in nature, or possibly the fifth being intention, in such a manner that they're able to engineer these things at the nanoscale level where they are imbued with life. Like I said before, I mean that literally. These objects, these things are alive.
That's wild.
Now, do they have empathy and all that? I believe they must.
Or if they're not eradicating us, right? I mean, certainly if they wanted to, they could. My personal opinion, but
oh yeah, in a blink. Yep, in a blink. We didn't have any armament on board the ships or aircraft because of the training exercise. I mean, makes sense, right? Which is always the case unless you're specifically out there to do a weapons test. That's a different thing. But even if we had been armed, there was absolutely zero we could have done about it to defend ourselves, in my view.
Yeah, I had watched the entire UAP hearing in July 2023, and Commander Fravor, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but he basically said these things were capable of doing things that we can't do then or now, or that he's aware of that we're working on like 20 plus years out into the future.
I agree. And he would know more about that than I do.
That was just a paraphrasing, so hopefully I got that right. But that was the general gist of what he said on the record to the Senate and the Congress.
I've heard him say that myself. I think it's an accurate paraphrase of what he said. I really do. I think if he hears this, he won't disagree with what you said.
So just for the record, if the U.S. or one of its allies had any type of experimental aircraft, needless to say, it would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, in value. But do you think anyone would put an experimental aircraft into an active training zone at all without notice to anyone?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It would violate every training protocol that the Navy believes in, because how do you do that and also prevent people from getting killed or aircraft from getting smashed into each other? You just simply don't layer an exercise on top of another exercise without exercise planners knowing what's happening. Yep, at least the planners. Now, individual players might not have the entire picture, but it's illegal. You can't do it you can't pull a red flag operation like that in the Navy. You can't do it in the other military services as well, by the way. It's probably true on most of the Allied armed forces. I mean, you just don't do it because people get killed. They don't go home to their families. And then questions are asked, rightfully so. Why, why? And you just don't have good answers. So, long answer made short, no, period.
Okay.
It wasn't us doing an experiment on top of us. No way. No way. And by the way, if it was, because of how this affected my life and how it's all metastatic, how it's all growing from that, I'm taking them to court. I will go into court and I'll open a federal lawsuit against them. Whoever did this is going to have to pay. Not me. But whatever that money happened to be is going to go into UAP research. And I already know what lab and I already know what project. And if it turns out to be the case that this was deliberately done, now if it was an oversight or an accident, that's different. Because none of us are perfect. Not a perfect world. But if this was a deliberate thing and it deliberately, knowingly broke U.S. law, longstanding Navy protocols and policies, I'm going to court, gentlemen. And I'm going to make them pay. If not in pounds, in pride. Yep.
So, Kevin, was there a procedure? What is the procedure for logging and reporting something like this that happens? Where does the data go after an event like this?
There's a chain of command, of course, in the military. So us as a tactical unit, we report it up the chain of command. And then decisions get made higher and higher and higher based on the level of decision making needed, if you will. And we do that in three different primary ways. We'll do it through actual hands-on message traffic. We'll do it over live communications over radios and satellites. And we'll also do it over data links. We put all of the tactical data on data link, and then we can share it that way. Did I answer the question, or did I?
Okay, yeah. So then, with that in mind, if you could sort of walk me through what when you, who was it, you or someone on your team that made the initial report of, I mean, there's something up there, we got to go look at it, and then after it happened and we realized we don't know what in the hell this thing is. Like, who made that report and where did that go?
That report was made by the tactical actions officer on board the ship, or someone that was working. One of the officers was talking to another counterpart on the USS Nimitz, where the admiral was located. Now, also on, I'm also talking on the radio. When I say I was a grader, so I had a more junior person doing the air control, and I'm standing over his shoulder watching and grading and all that kind of stuff. Of course, they're also on radios, so we're talking on a different radio circuit to some of the subordinate decision makers. But to answer your question, it was at a higher pay grade than I was. Their initial report was made by the officers and on that side of the house.
Okay, and do you recall what the reaction was or what actions were taken, or do you not? Do you know what actions were taken?
Well, when we first started detecting these things, we really didn't have a concern. Here we are off the coast of San Diego. They haven't exhibited any type of hostilities or any intentions or anything like that. They were just pretty much benign, doing whatever they were doing off the coast. If someone in the strike group did know what they were and what they were doing there, they didn't let us know. So we just continued to track them on radar and report them on the data links until we were going to do the exercise. And that's when they became on my radar, if you so to speak, because I was concerned about safety of flight. If I hadn't been for that, maybe we would have. If I hadn't been for the fact we were going to do the exercise, we wouldn't be here right now. Probably it would just been attracted and reported, And if this thing came up 20 years later, I would have said to myself, man, I probably should have said something 20 years ago. Those objects were weird. I wonder what they were.
Okay.
That's all it would have been. Yeah.
So then, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just when I'm kind of curious too. Was there any, if you can answer or not, was there any nuclear weapons on any of these vessels, or were they nuclear powered in any way?
Just the aircraft carrier, of course, nuclear powered, but no, the answer is no. We didn't have any, so except for small arms, of course, for, I'm talking guns, like you would, like a police officer would wear on duty, that type of stuff. But no, we didn't have any weapons loaded, or we weren't ready to go out there and shoot stuff, put it that way.
Okay. I just wanted a clarification on that. But also, it sounds like
Definitely not nuclear, because and I think the reason why you're asking, if I'm not mistaken, is it's been observed that whatever these things are tend to show up around nuclear installations and that kind of thing.
Exactly. Where I was going with that is you guys were out there doing, guys and gals, doing essentially a war training exercise, and I was wondering if that maybe in combination with possible nuclear supplies on board, if that caught the attention of these Tic Tacs to sort of observe us. But now that you're talking, it almost sounds like they were just out there doing what they were doing, and it wasn't until we engaged with them that. Is that correct?
That's a good question. Why they were there at that particular moment in time, I've long wondered that. I mean, that's a very good question. Because remember, I personally had been out there for years and years and years and years and years behind radars. Why didn't they show up then? All those years, why then? Why not before then? And I try not to do this because I don't want this thing to focus around me personally, because it's so much bigger than me. But for whatever reason, I seem to be in the middle of it, which is really hard to get my head around. I'm just not that kind of person. I just want to be normal.
I
Again,
can understand. I mean, I'd say that you're very normal, but I can also understand what you're saying, because and that was actually one of my questions too. It was about sort of being thrusted into essentially having the eyes of the world upon you, so to speak, in an unexpected way. What is that? What is that like?
well, it's like be in a constant state of thanks. Yep. I say thank you to God. And for me, it's not words. I feel it. Thank you for my life. Thank you for this planet. We're special. We are a nursery in the cosmos. Planet Earth is a nursery in the cosmos.
I would agree.
You look around us. How many blue planets do you see like us that have life? The type of life that we have, at least. So, after many years, I thought about this question that you're asking me now, and I've come up with this answer. And I could be dead wrong. I don't know. But assuming my idea about the creation of the universe is correct, and intention is a fundamental force, and there's an intender, there's a creator, and since we're so lonely in the cosmos, I think the reason why they are here is, well, let me back up a bit. Just basic biology. And again, I'm not a biologist. Took it in school. That was, in high school. But I do know that our DNA is made up from phosphates and sugars. The DNA forms a lattice structure, and the complex structures in between are formed from sugars. And the purest forms of prebiotics, the sugars, and the phosphates are found on the planet Earth at the bottom of our oceans at hydrothermal vents, where these things spew out from the volcanics below the seafloor, and they come out and they poof up and they spread out. And they're full of the purest phosphates you can find on Earth. It's the original source. So what I believe these things are doing is they're coming here to our nursery in the cosmos, and they're collecting these things, the phosphates and the prebiotics, and they're making seeds, if you will, and they're taking them out to the cosmos, and they're placing them on potential host planets.
Wow.
So in a billion years, with a B, a billion years, maybe sooner, maybe longer, a single photon strikes the sea pod just correctly in the presence of an inclined crystal, and it diffracts the light just so, and it sparks the creation of DNA. And once the DNA is formed, it forms the amino acids, and from the amino acids you get proteins, and then from the proteins you got life. So I think we've all heard the term prime directive. What these things are doing here on Earth, their prime directive is to spread life in the cosmos. And you've probably also heard the word of transpermia, of how life spread on Earth. I think the same thing's true in the universe. Interstellar transpermia is happening, and the whole point is to spread life in the universe. And Earth is not the only nursery. There's other ones out there. And whatever these things are, they are not going to let us destroy the planet. No way, no way. Now, they might let us do tactical nuclears. And that's the scary part. But in terms of all-out nuclear warfare on the planet, they ain't going to let us destroy this place. It's too valuable. They will stop us from letting that happen.
How did you come into this
really hope you're correct.
knowledge, Ken?
Well, it sounds crazy, I know. But if you really think about what I've just said, I've never heard a single explanation of all of this that makes more sense than what I've just told you. Have you? If you have, tell me.
No.
I mean, other than okay, where did God come from? I don't even have an opinion on that. But in terms of my logic of what's happening, I think it's solid. I've shared my ideas. You should see my email, the email thread I'm on. It's got over 100 academics on it, and you would recognize a lot of the names. And they're the top astrophysicists and quantum physicists on our planet.
Wow.
And not a single one of them has laughed at me with my idea. As a matter of fact, more than one has said they agree.
Wow.
Now, here's the problem. There's different races of, and I'll just go ahead and call them non-human intelligence, because I don't really have a better name. They're not all the same. They're all working for the prime directive, and their goal is to spread life in the cosmos. But some of them are more determined to do that than other ones. Some of them are more benevolent, and that's the type of Tic Tacs that we saw, I think, the benevolent creatures. And some of them are not going to let a bunch of silly humans get in their way. In other words, if we shoot missiles at them, they're going to respond. So that's the issue. That's what we're up against. We've got these things coming from somewhere else. They're here to get their seed pods, and that's what they're going to do. That's why I think they disappeared off the radar, off Guadalupe Island off the coast of Mexico. I think there's a spot in the ocean down on the seafloor right there where, for whatever reason, there's an ultra pure source of phosphates and prebiotics, and that's their mining claim. It's a mining claim. These things, these non-human intelligences have mining claims all over the planet. They're here to mine our rocks. And this is going to sound weird, but I believe that rocks, the reason why they are here is for rocks and souls. I know that sounds scary, but when I first heard this concept, I was kind of taken aback. What, they're here to kill us? No, 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 no. Nope. Quite the opposite. I believe they are here to identify souls that are ready for humanity 2.0.
That's really interesting, especially because I had a conversation with someone else today who we're going to bring in real soon as well. And they brought up the idea of souls in ET. It's really fascinating to me that you just said that today.
It is. And in some of the most recent research on quantum physics has suggested, and it's been observed that, and to use an analogy that I read about in a research paper, I don't remember the author, the analogy was, it's been observed that a coffee cup can turn into a donut, but for whatever reason, the hole always persists. The hole persists. So I've extrapolated that idea to biology, to us, and I believe that the human form can live and die, but our soul persists. Our soul doesn't die. And our soul is older than our physical form that you have right now. And when we eventually die off this, in our present physical form, our soul is going to remain alive. And at some point in time, maybe it'll be back in time. Who says it has to be forward in time? I don't know. I don't know. But your soul will be reanimated into a new physical form. And so those with old souls and with the right empathies and the right type of love and all that kind of stuff, the right humanness, I think we're being identified for our next placement on this earth, or whatever happens, wherever planet you end up on. Wow. Maybe they're pre-selecting you, Mike, to follow the seed pod. They're taken out to a planet XYZ, and that'll be your new home in a far, far, far future. We don't know. Your soul.
Well, depending on what day you ask me that question, I'm going to say, yes, take me. There's so much negativity in our world. So I'm going to ask you this next question, and by doing that, I want to sort of pass the conch over to Stuart, because we're going to get back. Like, I don't want to necessarily say if you're a religious person per se, but it sounds to me like you're a spiritual person. Would that be accurate?
That's very accurate.
So with that said, did your spirituality change in any way? Before Tic Tac versus after Tic Tac?
Absolutely. Just so to provide a little bit of context, when I was a little boy, I was raised within the Jehovah's Witness religion, and I'm not one today, and I never really was one. I was never baptized or anything. I was just a little kid, and I had issues with it ever since I was a little kid, especially when they told me we couldn't play baseball. So luckily I had a place to go, so I ran away from home. I think I was 13, 14, and went to live with my father up in Albany, Oregon. And so therefore I never had a religion. And time went on. All this stuff happened. But, I always did believe in God, of course. And I believe in there's a right and there's a wrong, just like it says in And then when this thing happened, I started doing research on religions, and that's when I realized that there was 2,600 of them. And I was staggered by that. I thought maybe there was 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, maybe
Right? Yeah.
26, 2,600. So for me, imagine the names of all those religions, and you print it out in a big mural and put it on your wall. And your job was to pick one. For me, it would be like trying to throw a dart against the wall, and wherever that dart landed, okay, that's my religion. It would be about that honest. And in fact, my dull ass dart would fall right off the wall, probably. So I am extremely spiritual. And I use that as a pun intendedly. I probably talk to and thank God more than most people you know. And I'm usually shaken into tears when I do it. Because I really mean it. Thank you. Thank you for my life. I love you. Show me. Use me. Help me do the right thing. I'm just a human. I'm naive. I'm ignorant. Show me. Use me. That's religion. How can I help my neighbor? What can I do to volunteer in my town? How can I be a good husband and not end up losing a wife from 30 years again? That was mostly my fault. I didn't know it at the time, but it probably drove her crazy. It ended badly. She tried to kill me, literally, with a sword.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right here in the front yard. Thank God I had self-defense training, or I would not be here. Samurai right to the top of my head. So I have a lot of reasons to thank God. And whatever or whoever it is, I really mean it. So if you want to call that a religion, then feel free. I don't have a name for it other than a 4-letter word called love.
Mm.
I didn't see love listed. Although I challenge you to go into Chat GPT and ask it, what do all the major religions on planet Earth have in common? And just look at what the answer is.
Wow.
I'll just tell you. 3 words, period. Love and compassion.
Yep.
Love and compassion. Now, that might be hard to see, especially with the stuff going on in the Middle East right now. But for me, it's my perspective is evilness, to an exponent. But to who's ever carrying out these evil acts, maybe their perspective is I'm doing the evil. I don't know. I mean, I'm not them. I don't. So what do you do with that? I say if you don't have a religion, don't go out of your way to try to find one. If you weren't raised that way, I mean, don't feel desperate to become X, Y, or Z just because everyone else is around you. Be who you are. If you love then. If you're compassionate, be compassionate. If you want to volunteer, go. If you want to love your family, love them desperately. That's my religion.
Yeah, that's authentic.
I hope so.
Yeah, I respect that. The greatest commandment is love. Love your neighbor as yourself, love your God with all your heart and soul. That's what Jesus answered when he was asked what the greatest commandment is.
I finally understand why.
Hmm.
Pretty wise words. There's a lot of
Very.
wisdom in that book, isn't there?
Yeah.
And other books of faith on the planet.
I agree.
Yep. But the problem for religion is, formerly, even 10 years ago, think about this. Religion and the subject of UFOs. Religion always tended to laugh at the UFO people. I mean, it was kind of that sense, right? But now the shoe's on the other foot, and people in religion don't like it much. They don't like the ones being laughed at, because their notions about God are all now being called into question.
Yeah, well, ironically, some religious people are claiming that they're demons when you're getting the sense of a benevolency and a love from them.
I got it just the other day. I had two people
Yeah.
come to my door. I won't mention the religion, but you could figure it out. And the moment I got to the description of what happened off SoCal with these things coming from sub-Earth orbit, one of them stands up real quick, like he was afraid. He says, "I have an idea. They're demons."
Mm.
And within 11 seconds, they were gone.
Wow.
Yeah. They blamed it on me, apparently, that because I observed them, I must be demonic. It was like, what in the, what have you guys been smoking? I mean, the roles have been reversed.
Yeah.
Isn't that curious? I don't know
It's
if that's ever
ironic.
happened before. The roles are now reversed.
Mm-hmm.
What was
I've
real is
seen
no
that.
longer real, and what was not real is real.
Yeah.
They obviously,
Yeah.
Stuart, not all 2,600 religions have the technical aspects of God correct, right? They probably all
No.
believe in it, but the whole story of Adam and Eve, for example, there's actually faiths out there that literally believe that's true. But if you only ever read one book in your life called the Bible, then yeah, I can understand how you would understand why that might be true. But if you've ever cracked a book on biology or history or evolution or math or physics or chemistry or anything other than the Bible, you will very quickly understand that the Adam and Eve story is an allegory. It has to be. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I got a more extended view of that story from the Sumerian tablets, and that's a contentious issue among Christians, but there's some very interesting stuff in those tablets.
And how about the flood of Noah? I mean, how many critters are on this planet? How do you get all those on an ark the size of maybe the house? If that, we were talking about a wood structure here that had to stay afloat at sea. And then a little bit of sailing on board ships at sea, and there's no way to fit that many animals, and also keep them. They poop, right? So what do you do with all the
Yeah.
poop and pee? And what do you do? How do you feed them? And where are they even going to go? I mean, again, that has to be an allegory.
Yeah, or it's DNA or seeds.
Well, how did Noah do that? I don't get it. He didn't even know there was giraffes in Africa,
Right.
or duck-billed platypus, or kangaroo in Australia,
Good point.
or koala bears,
Yeah, we got all that.
Yeah. Beautiful place, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I sailed aboard the Adelaide and the Sydney. I believe they're both museum pieces now, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. That was one of the ones chosen to. Every time we did Allied sail, I was always chosen to do the cross decks. One of my favorite things I always did in the Navy.
Wow.
I sailed with South Korea, Australia, Japan, and I believe that's it. Yeah.
So you're kind of playing an ambassadorial role at that
Exactly.
point too.
because when we deploy, we do it as an allied force. So we share the plans with each other. So my role was to go over and share, and other folks from the ship went to different warfare areas, but my job was to share air defense strategy and plans with them. And vice versa, they had people on our ship observing. That way we're more integrated when we go on deployment. When I talk to someone on the radio, I know who I'm talking to, for example.
Wow.
I met them.
Now that's a liaison and ambassadorial role,
Yeah.
which is similar to what's occurring with these Tic Tacs.
Interesting. Yeah. They're cross-decking.
What is cross-decking?
When you're on the deck of a ship, it's called the deck plate. You know, there's just the ship deck. So when you cross to a different deck, you're on a different ship. So the word cross-decking came about.
Okay. Kevin, I have a couple more questions for you here. And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 5 not being an option and 10 being most believable, in your opinion, what is your belief in UFOs?
I believe UFOs are real. I believe UFOs are findable. And those two things have been proven. And I also believe UAP are knowable. Those three things. And right now we're getting to know them. And I think very soon now we're going to prove that too. Now the government's come out and admitted they're real. So that's done. Checking the block on that one.
Okay.
We've proven they're findable because we went out to SoCal and did exactly that. We went out there and found them on a wing and a prayer. And the part you and I right now are working on is the knowable part. We're trying to figure out what the hell they are. And I think humanity's well on the way to doing that at this point. I really do. And again, why now? After the centuries and centuries upon centuries of mankind's history, why this moment in time? You tell me. Something's about to happen.
Wow.
Like Shakate told me back in 2014, he looked at me and he was emotional, like I get. And these were big, buff, gnarly dudes, man. SEAL team dudes, you know, spec war guys. And he's emotional. He's Kevin, you are incredibly important to what's about to happen. And I'm not focused on you are important so much as the what's about to happen part. What the hell did he mean by that? What's about to happen? And I think the answer is the knowable.
Wow.
The humanity is about to figure out just what reality is.
Oh, wow.
And it's not going to go well. And my role in this is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help humanity get ready for what's about to happen. Because we can't stop it. Our government, no government, is in charge of this. These things, whatever they are coming here no matter what we have to say about it. Because what they want here is so much bigger than us, and they love us, believe me. Because you got to remember, their whole mission is to spread life in the universe, I think. So it doesn't make any sense they'd want to wipe us out. We are life. However, we sit on something very valuable called life. We have the ingredients for life right here. And that's what they're doing here. They are coming here to get life and to spread life in the universe. And if that isn't beautiful, I don't know what is. So don't shoot missiles at them. Duh. That's what I can't say that loud enough. Leave them the hell alone. I don't shoot missiles at my neighbors.
No. Kevin, that effectively makes our planet like a type of Noah's Ark with seeds on it floating through space.
Yeah, remember the story of Ezekiel's wheel?
Yep.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Maybe that really was a UFO. It maybe the space-faring Noah really did take people on that Ezekiel's wheel, and they left here. And they did take some animals with them because they had to eat, right? I mean, they ate animals back then like we do. So they took some food with them and they left. And for whatever reason, maybe they're coming back to say hi. The same humans that were on the Ezekiel's wheel are coming back. Because
Yeah, not as
obviously,
much time.
I mean, I believe that's a recorded doc. I think that probably happened. I don't
Yeah,
think
it seems like it.
I think the
Yeah.
story was. I think it's a true story. Ezekiel's will really happened. It was probably a UFO. I don't think it was Archangel Michael or something like that. I think it was a UFO, just like we see. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
It sounds very much like it from the description in the Bible.
yeah, it's easy to see. Yeah, but to folks, even now, if that happened today, a lot of folks would say, yeah, it's Archangel Michael. But back in that time, especially, they have no. What else were they supposed to think? The same with all the indigenous cultures all around the planet. When they see these things, what are they supposed to think?
Yeah.
They're super beings. It must be God. There's no way to explain how they're able to do these seemingly magical things. Because that's exactly what it seems like. It seems like magic. How does that thing know my intentions before I even know my intentions? I mean, let's think about that for a minute. And this is hard to talk about. Let's just think, because there have been people that have suggested this to me. They said, well, Kevin, the reason why they showed up then is because they knew you were about to get out of the Navy and that was their last chance to send you a message. When I first heard that, I was like, what in the, what? It got nothing to do with me personally. But I just think it's so much larger than that. But think about it. Why then? Why?
Well,
Why
there's a
now?
parallel.
What's going on now that they need to show up now all of a sudden?
Now, there's a parallel with artists, right? So certain artists will, they'll bring a beautiful piece of art from the ether, like a Paul McCartney writing yesterday. He dreamt that song. It was basically given to him in that state. He's become the channel for so much music, so much beauty. And it's quite possible that you're a type of channel or artist. Do you have any artistic abilities?
Oh wow. I've suddenly developed the ability to pencil sketch like Picasso.
Wow.
I don't have any idea where it came from, but for example, if I drew this room I'm in right now, I know exactly how to do it, and pretty much get it done photorealistically,
Whoa.
without a ruler. I don't need a ruler.
Dang.
I can use my fingers, in the length of my finger, and a ruler really just gives you a straight edge. There's different ways to get straight edges, right? Music ability. I took choir all through school, but I could never sing like I can now. No way. Physical abilities. My body has stopped aging, apparently. I mean, I meet people my age, and they look twice my age. I'm exaggerating, but not by much, okay? Like my labs at the, I go to the doctor because I have petite mal seizures, so I go see them often. I've had 2 grand mals and continuing petite mals that have just only recently stopped because I'm on medications. And I think it's related to this, by the way. But so I have physical abilities I didn't have before. Not to the extent I have. I've loved golf but I was never really serious about it until about 10 months ago on my birthday. My wife bought me a set of golf clubs, and basically every day I've been out practicing that I can, weather and things like doctor's appointments and stuff like that are built around it. But it turns out I'm actually a very good golfer. I'm like oddly weird, like shoot between the trees, right through the branches on purpose.
Dang.
Yeah, there's stuff like this. Like what? I don't know. And I sit up over the ball different than anyone I've ever seen. I don't know. It just seems different now.
Are you visualizing the shot and then hitting it exactly how you visualize it?
Precisely.
Right, that makes sense.
You guys golfers?
I've played before, yeah.
Not very well, but it's fun.
Even on the PGA, I mean, the pros are down there and they're over the ball looking, and for some reason they always look down range and then look at their ball and look down range and then look at their ball. Right? Am I wrong?
Nope, that's what it is.
I don't ever do it that way. The ball's there, and if I play in winter rules where you can move a little bit, I'll kind of tee it up on the closest point of teed up ground, right? And I'll stand behind the ball and I'll look where it's going, and I'll pick a piece of grass right in front of it, maybe two, and then I'll get over the ball and I'll line my club face up so it's all a tee in front of that piece of grass. And then I will never look down range. Why? I already have my aim. If I look down range, I'm going to lose my club face angle. So I'll look over the range and then I'll just adjust my loft, either lofted or delofted. And then I'll adjust my body to where the club has to be. I do it completely different.
Yeah.
Instead of adjusting the club to where my body is, I adjust my body to where the club has to be. And then I weight it just right. Maybe take a practice swing so I don't hit it too soft or too hard. And then I'll go. And then amazingly, the ball goes where I wanted it to, and how it'll go high or low like I wanted, or pitch and run like I wanted. Now, the transition for me is I've been doing this on artificial turf. So lately I've gotten out of the golf course and hitting off real ground. There's a transition there that I'm working on.
Okay.
Because I end up hitting behind the ball too much and fatten my shots up. And then I'll try to adjust and I'll hop them on the top. So that's the transition I'm making now, getting out to the real golf course. So the long answer is yes, I've definitely changed. There's no question about it. And it's still happening. I've gotten into running. My town's about 2 miles away, and it's not all safe for running because the roads are real narrow, and there's a lot of meth heads here, and they don't know how to drive, to put it frankly. They'll go 80 and right through the school zone. They don't give a rat's ass, right?
Oh, dang.
So I do walk run into town, and I go down there to Taylor's Country Store. I'll give them a shout out, and then I'll run home. So I'm a different person physically now than I was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I am. I'm not afraid to take my clothes off now like I used to. I'm not shy about it anymore like I used to be.
So,
because when you get older, you get more shy about your personal appearance and stuff, of course. But no longer. I mean, I don't flaunt it. Just my wife has seen me nude, but even with my shirt off, she's the only one that's seen. But I'm not afraid. So, long story short, yeah. And this is my piece of advice since you brought it up. If you see these things personally, and you sense that you're starting to change, and other people around you are starting to notice you're changing, like Stuart, you were a pretty successful minister. Mike, you're a pretty successful musician. Why this sudden interest in zoology? What's going on? What have you been smoking? What's going on with you? Don't let it bug you. Because you are changing. In fact, go with it. If you have a sudden urge to play the piano, by golly, sit down and do it. Let this thing change you. Because is. It's going to change you physically if you let it. It's going to give you brand new ideas and inspirations that you didn't have before. It's going to wake up parts of you that were always in you, just they weren't surfaced. And that's where my whole idea about the basal ganglia came into being. That's what I think is happening. I think for whatever reason, and this could happen from across the universe because of quantum entanglement, but for whatever reason, locally, when you see these things, I'm speculating. This is all speculation because I don't know. I think an observation of these objects, whatever they are, it vibrates in such a way that it uncovers traits of you that were buried in you before. You just didn't know you had them. And I think it's being done through our frontal lobe in our brain, through the thalamus in our brain, and specifically the basal ganglia, which you can think of that as the internet node for your body. And if you think about it that way, it makes sense. It goes through your basal ganglia, and it brings your body up to a point that it changes you over time. I'm still changing. To this moment, I'm still changing. But if you accept it and you go with it, it's good. The problem is it hasn't turned out well for so many people because everyone around them thought they were going crazy.
Right.
Yeah, and it's all of a sudden their friends wouldn't talk to them because you're that, what? What happened? You want to throw pizza now and you're one of the most famous doctors on the planet? You want to open a pizza parlor? Just what the? What, did you take some of those drugs you prescribed? And that's how people lose it. A lot of us committed suicide because they couldn't take it. And you know that's true. They lost colleagues, they lost their careers, they lost their families. Some of them can no longer see their own children because it didn't go well for them. So my message to anyone listening, if you see these things and apparently some of us are more affected more easily than others, if you start to change, don't fight it. Don't fight it. Sit down at that piano. Pick up that guitar. Pick up that pencil. Crack that physics book. Start going to church. Whatever your calling is, do it. Out of the blue, go make the greatest geological discovery on the West Coast that's ever been made, like I think I've done. Strangely enough. Can I tell you what it is?
I was going to say, if you can please go into detail about that.
Our family back in the Kalmiopsis wilderness came to this valley, Illinois Valley, in 1918. And that was during the gold years here, the gold rush, all along California and up here, Southern Oregon, all along the West Coast. And our family had a mining claim back there for 100 years now, 100 years or so. And still active in the family. And I remember talking to my grandfather, he's passed now, rest in peace. And he told me, he said, Kevin, you don't understand. I said, what, sir? He said, we weren't mining gold nuggets like it's found here, to kill my bench gravel. So the gold we were getting was so fine that you had to look at it through a microscope or a magnifying glass. And we probably lost more than we ever found because we couldn't capture it. And it looked like snowflakes under magnification. And I was like, and I took that knowledge back with me in the hills, and it didn't make any sense. So because I'm not a mineralogist, I'm not a geologist. So, but I thought about it. I said, that doesn't make sense. It would have to look like little tiny ball bearings if it had traveled any distance because it's soft. So I figured out that it must be coming from very locally, right close to the surface. So I started digging into the scant research that had been done on the geology. And lo and behold, I discovered that our mining claim was associated with a much, much, much larger piece of geology. And what we have here originated at the Pacific spreading arcs. And it's a section of geology called the Josephine Ophiolite. And it took 157 million years for the spreading lights to spread far enough for that piece of land to get to the west coast. Now, normally what happens when spreading arcs spread is the spreading section of geology normally gets subducted underneath the continental plate because it's so darn heavy. Because you got to remember, along the spreading arcs, you got hydrothermal vents. Here again, hydrothermal vents, right? It's all coming together here. The serendipity of this whole darn thing has to do with hydrothermal vents, okay? And it's all connected. So hydrothermal vents are laying down mineral deposits. In fact, hydrothermal vents are considered the Earth's original mineral sorters. And they'll do a layer of, say, aluminum, and they'll do a layer of nickel, they'll do a layer of gold, everything on the periodic table. In this case, it's called the Josephine Ophiolite. And what an ophiolite is normally that ground is so heavy, it gets subducted underneath the continental plate. But when it does get abducted, for whatever reason, it's called an ophiolite. So what we have here is 8 to 10 kilometers deep beneath my feet right now. We have layered mineral deposits going down miles upon miles. It extends from Northern California to Northern Washington and goes inland, I don't know how far. And that's what we have here. And there's trillions with a capital. There's enough wealth below my feet to pay off our national debt times 10.
Wow.
Dang.
And I'm not exaggerating. I'm basing that on current metal prices, because when this thing goes, metal prices are going to drop because there'll be an abundant supply, okay? And so that's what I think we got here. And that's kind of how I went about figuring it out. And so I did my research and I put it on the back burner and on the shelf because I thought, okay, there's no way it'll ever get mined. It's wilderness. You can't do it if you wanted to, and nor do I want to. You should see the plants and animals back there. I mean, it's some of the most precious land on the planet. I'll take you back there if you don't believe me. It is unbelievably beautiful and precious. So anyway, time went by, published my stuff, life went on, and I got scooped up in all this, and my name got out there, and Elon Musk and a gentleman by the name of, I think he goes by MJ out of Japan, both billionaires, of course, they announced they were going to take a SpaceX flight around the moon and come back. It was supposed to be in 23. I think it got delayed to this year, but I still don't know. And they announced they're going to take 8 civilians. Go ahead and apply, but you have to tell us why. So I did. I applied and I sent them my research on the geology, and I said, this is why I want to go. And oh, by the way, if you happen to repurpose your tunneling technology, because Musk is putting in the tunnels between LA and Vegas, I think, sir, you can tunnel these valuable minerals, and I explained the whole thing, it was in my research, underneath the ground, and go right down the mineral deposit layers. Remember, they're all stratified in layers going way down. And you can mine these things to scoop out the good gold and never even touch the wilderness. Never touch the cities and towns on the ground. Do it all underneath the ground.
Interesting.
And guess what happened 4 days later? I was out here doing work in the yard, mowing the grass or whatever. And all of a sudden I hear this big, huge roar. And I look up in the sky towards the Kalmiopsis wilderness. And there's this huge white aircraft flying low and slow right over the top of the wilderness jet. And I'm thinking, Kevin, this is not supposed to be happening, is it? You cannot fly jets over that wilderness. It's illegal. And I watched it, and I found out later it flew all the way up and down our coast, or Northern California, Northern Washington, inland, and crisscross back and forth, north, south, east, west. And I could show you on the picture because we got it on flight radar. It did a circle around my mining claim.
Wow.
Couple
Wow.
circles around my mining claim, right where the mining claim area is. And I ran into the house and I jumped on and I learned that the flight was from NASA.
Jeez.
Yeah. It was a NASA flight, and the mission that they had listed was geodetic.
Whoa.
They were doing a geodetic mission because I had sent my research to Musk. But here's the beautiful thing. And if I get emotional, this is why. Because it was either on that flight or it was on a subsequent flight. They're still happening. And I don't know if you heard this or not already, but apparently they discovered, again, here goes hydrothermal vents. They discovered some hydrothermal vents right off the coast of Seattle, Washington. They didn't know were there. And they are extremely concerned about tsunami threat, the tsunamis. It turns out that Chief Seattle was right. The Native Americans wouldn't build there for a reason, because they knew that about every 300 years the Cascadia earthquake happens, and we're 30 years overdue, by the way. And that whole area sees a mega tsunami. Mega tsunami. Not a small guy. We're talking mega. Like, you're dead. Okay, there's no way. And so the beauty for me is through that whole thing, A to Z, ended up maybe saving people.
Oh, wow.
Not maybe. For real. They're doing something about it now.
Wow.
If I hadn't sent my research to Musk, would that be happening? I don't know. No one's come right out and told me, A plus B equals C, but so I'm surmising a lot of this. Sure, I have no other way to interpret it. It just seems too coincidental. And the fact all goes back to every time it all goes back to hydrothermal vents. Isn't that weird?
Interesting.
It is.
Yeah, I'm connecting the dots myself when you were talking about that. How the Tic Tac sort of alerted you to, because you said that all the Tic Tacs disappeared off radar right off the coast of Mexico, where there's a hydrothermal vent, right?
The deepest hole on planet Earth is located in that spot.
Wow.
Oh my God. Okay, that's even more.
Look, the one that goes, the ocean, seafloor hole is in that spot. And long story, yeah, there's hydrothermal vents out there. You bet you.
Gee.
I mean, that's right off the coast of those faults that, the LA fault region, that whole fault area. There's a lot of hydrothermal vents out there. But this one's probably producing the purest form that can be found.
So it's definitely weird that it's almost as low, and this is going to sound weird too, but it's almost as though like the Tic Tacs sort of directed your attention to this area where the hydrothermal vent is, and then you experience various changes that you talked about, and coincidentally you stumble upon or this other hydrothermal vent that we now know is an issue, and we need to look into and prepare for things.
Isn't that weird? The bookends.
Yeah,
Sure is.
The serendipities in this whole thing are just astonishing. It's astonishing. It is. And even now, I get them all the time. Serendipities are every day, all day. Weird timing events. I don't know if you guys experience them. For me, it's digital clocks. Like just randomly, I'll come in the house to grab a screwdriver or whatever. The phone rang, whatever. And I'll walk past the digital clock. It'll say 11:11 or 4:44 or 4:56 or 1:23. There's a special name for that type of number, matricular number or something like that. And I'm boneheading the name of it. I just don't remember, but it's always a number like that. Well, not always, but it happens too often and it always happens when I'm not even paying attention to it. I just happen to notice it. In other words, I can't make it happen.
So yeah, whether we call it, I get the terms serendipity and synchronicity confused a little bit, but I think they're pretty similar. And most people don't really pay attention to that, or maybe better said, more people now are starting to pay attention to those kind of things, like the recurring themes of the hydrothermal vents, or the clock numbers being all in alignment and such. And I think those are significant.
I do too. I think we really only have two things as humans. We have guidance, things that guide us, and we have choices. And that's really what we have. Our guidance shows up in the form of the way we were raised, and our religious traditions and beliefs, our culture, our heritage, all that stuff. And then we have choices. What do we do? And that's the question. So I think the purpose of the synchronicities is to help us make choices. Just to give you the assurance that you're on the right track. Keep going. So when I'm feeling confused or flabbergasted or frustrated, and I walk by that synchronistic number, and I see it's 1111, I take solace in it. Whether I should or not, I don't know, but it helps me personally. Like, I'm on the right track. Keep going. It's just a constant reminder.
Yeah,
you're on the right track. Don't give up.
I agree with that. So I kind of want to go.
It's that simple. Yeah, I think it's that simple. I really do. Anyway, go ahead. I stepped on you.
Oh, no worries. I kind of want to go sort of circling back to the beginning and maybe stitch it all together a little bit with going back to the Tic Tac. And I mean, of course, we've been talking about that the whole time, right? But what's your gut feeling that these things are? Like when you're sitting around drinking coffee with your associates, what's the general consensus?
UFOs. Yep. Unknown aerial phenomena. Good question, right? The consensus is now, I think, that these things are not from here. Now, there's those out there that will swear up and down they have to be us, humanity stuff, or they're demons. They're, working against God. They're actually demonic evil forces. But I think generally, including my own circle of family and friends and stuff, I think we just assign it to unknown aerial phenomenon. We don't know, but we know they're real, and we've proven that they're findable. We did it in the SoCal expedition. We went out there in a wing and a prayer, and we actually found them. They showed up to say hi.
Yeah, I believe that was when you were talking about that. What's called a tear in the sky. I saw that. It was very compelling.
Yep, really happened.
So then, before this Tic Tac incident, have you ever seen anything unexplainable? Has anything unexplainable ever happened to you before then?
Boy, that's a tough question. And you're talking beyond just military stuff on that one, I think.
Yeah, just in general life, military or not.
Yeah, but at the time I didn't know it was related to now, probably. But now, moments in my earlier life, suddenly come back into the forefront. And the serendipity of my life, it all kind of threads together now somehow. Every step along the way is related to the other step just before, and perhaps the one that I'm about to take too. I don't know. Serendipity is a huge, huge part of this. So if anyone listening to this encounters these things, and you start having serendipity, take solace in it. Because there's not going to be any clear answers for you. I'm sorry. There's going to be a lot of unknowns all the way through this. You're not going to know. But don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. Go with it.
So on that note,
go ahead.
What would your advice be to any current military personnel who sees or encounters a UAP? What should they do?
Tell the truth. Nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Excellent.
Yep. Tell the truth. Nothing but the truth. Don't embellish it. Don't try to profit from it for your own personal self. Because if you do, I'm just warning you now. Whatever these things are, they ain't going to like it. Nope. They're not going to help you. If you turn this into you, if you turn this into a money grab, you're going to be shunned by whatever this thing is. They're not going to like you much. Now, it's been suggested to me that that's why I've even had people tell me that I can't even say it. It's hard to even say it, that I was chosen. It just sounds so friggin' bizarre to me, and it can't be true, you know? How? Why? I'm a neighbor just like you are, you know? Come on. What? But some of these things I can't deny. I can't. I'm a trained observer, you know, and I'm reporting what I observed, and I continue to do that, and I've done it with honesty. And contrary to what others have suggested, I won't mention any names, I haven't not embellished this. I've never taken a dime for any of this. I've never made up anything about it that wasn't true from my perspective. No way. I'd rather die. I would. No way. I have a job to do, and I know who I work for. And God willing, I'm going to do it. I don't care if I'm flat broke. I have something more valuable than gold. I have life. And it just pisses me off. Like I live in a pretty rugged neck of the woods, right? There's lots of people here that you drive through town, they're laying in the gutter, literally, all strung out on drugs of all manner. You can't even believe it. Living like sewer rats, literally. And I'm not wearing their shoes if they have them. Some of them are without shoes. And if you try to help them, they just spend it on meth. You know, what are you supposed to do, you know? And it just makes me want to vomit. They don't realize the beauty that and the fickleness of life. There was some beautiful life randomly killed in Israel for no apparent reason. We are all going to die, you know? And it's random and it's fickle and it's beyond reason. So the most precious thing for me is life. Not trying to embellish it or trying to get rich in it in my temporary time here, but to live it and be honest and help. Tell the truth. So that's my advice to any military person. There's protocols in place now. There's reporting procedures now when there wasn't before during my time. Use it. Don't be afraid. If you see something, report it. You're not going to be called crazy anymore like I was. You're not going to be accused of doing drugs like I was. The process is there for you now. Use it. And if you start to change because of your own encounter, don't fight it. It will fight you back. It will fight you back. You try to fight it, you try to profit from this thing, it's going to metastasize very badly for you. You'll be the one that has your wife try to kill you. Or you'll be the one where you can't see your kids. Or you'll be the one that's suddenly without a career, living in the wilderness. This thing can go bad for you if you let it. But thank God, others have gone before you that have sort of blazed a trail. And follow the trail, man. Do it. You're out there on deployment and you see something anomalous on your radar, well, then say something. Chances are there's a whole lot of people counting on you to see that thing and to say something about it. Keeping it inside you isn't going to help. You'll end up going crazy.
Thank you for that.
It's that real. We're just human, guys.
Mm.
Yep. We're not magical. And when you get involved in this thing, especially when I first became involved in it, there was mostly unknowns. Almost everything was an unknown from A to Z. And only just recently have I started to get some actual real answers after 20 years. And I've had a lot of help. I can't even begin to tell you how people like Dr. Jack Sarfati's helped me, for example, or Dr. Kevin Knuth, or Dr. Matthew Zaidagas. Just filling in the academic holes, because a lot of my ideas turned out to be correct. And they showed me the research and the math behind it and direct me in the right direction so I could get answers. So that's my advice. If you're in the military, you see these things, or any public servant, if you're a policeman on duty and you say something. It's okay now. The chief of police ain't going to look at you strange anymore. Probably not going to accuse you of doing drugs, because the government said they're real. The military has protocols in place. Of course I'm going to believe my deputy. In fact, I'm going to get my squad car and go look, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a public servant, including military, you see these things, report it. Follow the procedures. And know you're not crazy. That's my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm also curious on just your overall thoughts about this. Now, I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but I mean, obviously you've heard about in 2023 July, the United States had a public hearing about UAP. In March of 2024, the EU, the European Union, it wasn't necessarily the same kind of thing, but it was, in a way. It was a public hearing that I also watched, and they were essentially acknowledging, yes, this is real, and they were bringing in academia and other people like yourself talking about the safety of flight issue. Just what are your thoughts on that? Both we had the United States of America and less than a year later, the European Union having these public hearings that some people might not actually have heard all about or anything about yet, but what do you think about that? I'm actually pretty proud of our Congress. If I was in charge of calling up witnesses and testifiers, I would have done it exactly like they did it. I wouldn't have called me.
I would have called the actual whistleblowers. I'm just an observer. That's all. And there's a huge difference between a whistleblower and an observer. A whistleblower knows where bodies are buried. I don't. I probably never will. I'm just an observer. So our Congress, they wanted to know where the bodies are buried. So who are they going to ask, you know? They're not going to ask me. They already know my story. All I'm going to do is get up there and make them cry. And they would. By the time I was done, I wouldn't be shocked at all if I got a standing ovation. But that's a dog and pony. That's a dog and pony show. And they know that. That's not what they want. They want answers. And people like David Grush and Commander Fravor, David Fravor, they're whistleblowers, okay? I put them in that group. And I just don't belong there. Did I answer your question? That's what I think about the Congress hearings, and I'm really proud that they're finally doing it, because you got to remember our elected members in the government are just that. They're elected, and they have responsibility to their home districts.
Absolutely.
That's why they're there. And their home districts want to know what these things are, obviously. So who are they gonna, do something? Ask. And so they're asking. And I don't think we've heard the last of this in our government either.
Oh, I'm pretty confident we have not.
It's all on the back burner right now because we have an election underway. But I think once the new president or President Biden's reelected, whatever the case is, I think we'll start hearing more committee hearings.
Wow.
If not the whole Congress. But so far it's been in committees, so. And yes, they know about me. My attorney's been in contact with the staff, and I've made it known that if they need me, I'll go. I don't really want to, but I will. I detest flying on airplanes. I don't like it at all. It's just the logistics of the whole thing is a freaking nightmare. Trying to even travel nowadays, it sucks. Anyway, if they want me to go, I will, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if I never went, and I'm extremely cool with that. I'm not I shouldn't be the one they're most interested in, put it that way. They want to know where bodies are buried, and I don't have that answer.
Fair enough. I still think that your testimony, as it were, would be an important part of the overall.
It would be moving. It would be moving, trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely get some action out of that Congress. There's no question in my mind. I would have some of them in tears. There's no question in my mind. They wouldn't be able to stop themselves.
I believe that.
I mean, I don't want to brag, but my wife and I just came back from the Ozarks conference in Northwest Arkansas. In Eureka Springs, a beautiful place. Looks just like my home here. Same fauna, same rocks, same geology. Everything is gorgeous. And I was a keynote speaker, and I had told the organizers, "Hey, don't be surprised if I have everyone in tears and I get a standing ovation." And I was probably pretty well snickered, and that kind of thing. Sure. It's only happened ever once here in 48 years. Sure. But that's exactly what happened. Yep.
I believe it.
Yeah. At the end of my presentation, I showed a baseball, because I love baseball, snippet of, was it Willie Mays? One of the most famous grand slams in history. Walk-off grand slam. And you know how that goes in the baseball game, right? Clears the benches.
Yep.
And I got done, and I looked at everyone and said, "That's what it feels like standing right here right now."
Awesome.
Standing O.
Wow.
My wife said there was people all around her in tears.
Wow.
It was moving. Wait till you see they're still working on the links for the whole thing, but wait till you see my presentation. It's powerful.
I want to see that.
Yeah, please do send it when it's available.
I put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's powerful. I wouldn't change a thing. Only I shouldn't have farted that one time. I need a little levity, sorry. I didn't
That's
actually.
all right.
So I've got one more question for you, but before that, I wanted to, Stuart, do you have anything that you wanted to touch upon that we haven't yet?
Not really. This has been an amazing interview. I'm very happy with the content. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you for your transparency with this and your honesty and integrity. Really respect that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I hope I'm doing okay with the role here. I didn't ask for it. Know that.
We definitely went to places I was not expecting to go, and I'm glad that we did. And Kevin, it's really I don't even know what the word is, because there were some topics and specific words that you said just now that I heard from somebody else when I was talking on the phone with them yesterday. Planning what we're going to be doing next, and I think that's very, very interesting. That. Anyways, it.
How do you explain some of this stuff?
I don't have words.
It the way it ties together, and there's synchronicity and serendipities.
Yeah.
All kinds of S words.
So earlier you were talking about Elon Musk, and I wanted to.
And I've never met him, by the way. I've never met him.
Okay, no worries.
I know who he is, and he knows who I am. Put it that way. Okay.
Fair enough. I actually, before we get to that part, are you open to sharing with when you applied to go into the space program, as it were? What was your why? Why did you want to go?
I love adventure. I've always been a traveler ever since I was a kid in high school, and I still remain that. Which sounds kind of weird because I hate to fly, right? But there's trains, there's ships, there's walking, there's vehicles, and I will fly if there's a good enough reason. But I wanted to explore, and I wanted to forward my geology research because I thought they were related. Because again, I think that whatever these things are, they're here for two primary reasons. They're here for our rocks and our souls. And those two reasons combined is I wanted to be on that SpaceX flight.
Okay.
And I got an email back about a week later, and it was very short, terse response, and it said you made the short list.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
That's the last thing I've heard. I don't know if I'm still on the short list, but
that's amazing. Amazing.
What happened to that? What happened to the flight itself? I don't even know. It's kind of went quiet on us. I don't know what's going on with it, but I'll still go if anyone's listening. Send me to training. I'll wear a spacesuit. I can still fit in one.
That's awesome. So yeah, and on that note, I sort of wanted to. I'm going to switch our screen view here for a second, because what we're going to do is we're going to play a clip of Elon Musk, because he gets frequently, as I don't know the guy either, right? But he gets frequently asked about aliens, and he recently said something. So I'm going to change our view here. So here's Elon Musk.
SpaceX with the Starlink constellation has roughly 6,000 satellites, and not once have we had to maneuver around a UFO. Okay.
So this is the latest from the newsroom. Elon Musk has given his opinion on the existence of aliens.
I don't see any evidence of aliens, and I look at it. If somebody has evidence of aliens in a that's not just a fuzzy blob, then I'd love to see.
So, Mr. Day, Kevin, you spent a career in the U.S. Navy as a radar specialist, and you were on board the USS Princeton, during the Tic Tac incident with the USS Nimitz. What do you say to Mr. Musk's comments about never having to move satellites for UFOs and show me something more than a fuzzy blob? I think it's a valid, very compelling statement, especially from him. What are your thoughts on that?
He's correct, obviously. but I think about it this way. Assuming that that object, whatever it was, came from across interstellar space, it had to cross through a lot of space junk, if you will, and avoid it. And the maneuvers that I saw it make, dropping from 20,000 feet in 0.78 seconds to the surface of the water, no sonic boom, it can maneuver right around the satellites, no issue. It'd be like asking me, you're driving your car, but there's a house 100 yards off the highway. How were you able to avoid it? Well, I stayed on the road. I don't think it's a concern for UAP to avoid satellites whatsoever. No, I think that's going down a rabbit hole that doesn't need to be gone down. That's just my personal thoughts on it. If these things can travel across the depths of space and light years away, then it's ridiculous to think that a satellite was going to get in their way.
Good point.
Yep. Now, I'm not as smart as Musk is, obviously, but I think he's missed the boat on that one.
All right, good point. I really wanted to get your view on that, and I appreciate that. So I thank you so much, Kevin, for being here and taking the time with us. And if ever you want to come back again, we're definitely you're always welcome to have more conversations with us. I think we
count on it.
Like that to happen.
The story isn't finished yet, I don't think. And there's developments about to happen that we don't know about yet. And when those transpire, yeah, it'll be time to reconvene, I think, and talk some more about this and how it all related to back to this moment right now.
Wow.
This moment we're having right now is going to turn out to be serendipitous in the future somehow. We just don't know how. That much I can say.
I believe it.
From experience. It just keeps happening. Yep. Because there's stuff I haven't talked about yet that's bizarre. Okay. We'll have to leave it for another discussion. But
okay, well, definitely want to have another discussion whenever you're open to it. Whether it's within the near future or the farther down future, whenever you're comfortable with that would be great.
okay.
So just to kind of close it out here, before I ask you where people can maybe learn more about you or contact you if they desire, I wanted to say I purchased your book, Sailor's Anthology, and I really enjoyed it. Your writing style was, to me, it reminded me of Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and other things like that. It was very sort of action-packed, in my opinion. I liked it, and I think that everyone should check it out. That is literally the smoking gun that this actually happened. You published this in the Library of Congress, like 10, 15 years before it even became known to the public, with the exact words and such.
If you look on the front matter of the book, you'll see the Library of Control number that was assigned to it, and it's February 2009, the time it actually got published in Congress.
Okay.
And believe me, when you publish something in the Library of Congress, there's intel people looking. It's just how it works. And luckily, I was able to sneak my book past whoever was watching, and it got published in there. And my whole plan was just in case. I did it just in case this thing ever became public, that my book would be proof, smoking gun proof that it really happened. Because I don't have a time machine.
Yeah, I think whether it was, I don't recall if it was in the book specifically or if it was one of the conversations we were having, but I love the word. It's all fiction except for the parts that aren't.
Yeah.
I thought it was just great.
Yep. Especially my story about the Philippines, huh?
Oh my gosh.
You should have seen it back in the 80s. It was like, wow. Okay.
That was crazy. And
yeah, it was a great protocol back then, let me tell you.
Yeah. All right, Kevin. Well, thank you so very much for being with us. I definitely appreciate you and your time, and look forward to not only making another episode, but just keeping in contact with you about all kinds of things.
You got it. Yep. God bless you guys. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, we're out.
So, Stuart, what do you think?
I was absolutely fascinated by what got revealed there. And he went to places which I absolutely wasn't expecting, but I'm so glad that he did. And I'm very curious to know that some of the things he was alluding to about what's coming. I'd like to know if he's aware of what's coming exactly, or just has a sense of what's coming.
I was wondering the same thing. Now, I have my own ideas or theories on that, but I was definitely curious. On one hand, I've heard from a bunch of places and sort of from the horse's mouth, as it were, that there's 40 different people of his caliber, military witnesses, ready to come forward for another hearing in Washington, D.C., whether it's public or private. And they're just sort of on standby. And I think because of the elections, it's sort of put on hold. But I'm also hopeful, not to get political, but I think that the whoever is running for U.S. president should be asked, what is your view on UAP? I think that's a potential important issue to talk about. But just to sort of allude to where we're going next with our next guest is that yesterday I was having a phone conversation with him, and he was talking about souls. It was weird that Kevin brought that up too. And there's different information out there. Now, we'll get into that in our next episode, as it were. But he was also talking about the idea of the morality and should I forget the word? Maybe protocols of how do two civilizations come together that are completely different? And how do we communicate and things like that? And I can speculation, and maybe I'll ask Kevin after the fact. But I wonder if that is what he was maybe alluding to, is the not only the disclosure aspect on an official level, which is, in my opinion, has just happened, but also now we're making plans perhaps to say, okay, here's these other beings, and how do we coexist?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes up related to that. Like, I'd like to know who's known about this for a long time, and what the ramifications are, how it's going to affect our civilization, and whether we're going to influence their civilization.
Wow. Yes, I mean that's a great point.
Yeah, because when two worlds collide, so to speak, there's going to be implications on both sides.
Very true.
I mean, I don't know if we're ready for that, or if you ever can be ready for that. I just don't know. But I think it's in our future. Probably as unavoidable as the integration with AI. And, by using the word unavoidable, I don't mean that in a negative or positive light. I just mean inevitable. I probably should use that word instead.
Yeah, good word. So I guess only time will tell, right? But I think Kevin is brave and compassionate.
Empathetic. He's got the empathy, that's for sure.
Yeah, empathetic as well, and it's just such. I've never seen that combination of those things in one person before. He's very, very unique person. I'm really happy to be getting to know him and that he came and talked with us here.
Oh, I feel absolutely honored to know the man. It's fantastic, and the levels he'll go to with his openness and sharing is just fantastic. I really respect that openness.
As do I. Yeah, originally we were going to maybe break it out into 1 hour segments, which I thought was a good idea. But then as we went along, it just didn't feel right. So I think we're just going to put it out in full. Because it needs to be that way.
There's a lot of content there. And I think the world needs to see it, especially because we don't know what's happening in the future, what's coming in the future. And he made a really interesting comment about the possible serendipity of this information that is revealed today, how important it could be in the future.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty curious. But I also felt like with a comment like that, now isn't the time for me to ask all the questions that I want to ask, right? Because that's just what I do. I ask questions. But it is going to be interesting to see, what that is.
Excellent.
Well, Stuart, thank you again as well for another great episode, and I look forward to meeting again real soon. Join us next time when we talk with Mr. Robert Salas, former Captain, U.S. Air Force. He's going to talk about how the UFOs turned off thermonuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles during the Cold War, and it wasn't an isolated incident. From there, we're going to talk about the spiritual implications of all this, and Robert poses a very interesting question. What is it like when two civilizations that are completely different come together for the first time? You're not going to want to miss this. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, bell, spread this conversation all over the world. We are putting it out there for free. We need your help. Thank you, and see you next time.